Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today is Friday, November 22nd, 2019. Today I'm going to recap last night's Thursday night football game between the Colts and the Texans and discuss ramifications from it. College football, college basketball, NBA, and NHL. Look ahead to tonight and the weekend set of games. I'll have picks for college football and the NFL weeks 13 and 12 respectively, and my best bet of the day. Okay, we're going to start with Thursday Night Football, where the Texans defeated the Colts by a score of 20-17. It was much lower scoring than I anticipated. Houston, first place in the division, is 7-4 on the season. Indy drops to 6-5. Deshaun Watson, 19-30, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Jacoby Brissett, 16-25, 129 yards. So, a not-so-great game for Brissett. Watson has a good game. They didn't have Marlon Mack, the Colts. And then the Texans get back Will Fuller, Eric Ebron, and T.Y. Hilton come back for the Colts. But really, Hilton just sucked. He had a couple drops and really came back to bite Indy in this game. I was on the over, and that was obviously a loser. So we'll move on from the NFL, and now we're going to talk about the college game from last night. It was an ACC game between two bad teams, and Georgia Tech came out on top 28-26. I got that pick correct. Georgia Tech goes to 3-8. NC State 4-7, so NC State's done. They're probably going to fire their coach this year, as Georgia Tech has shown some improvement throughout the season. I think next year they could potentially make a jump and make a bowl game. I think that could be like a sneaky surprise team from the ACC next year. And I'm interested to see what NC State does regarding their head coach. So, a fun game in the ACC between two obviously bad teams. Now we'll talk college basketball. We're going to go through last night's slate and look ahead to today's slate, which there's obviously games underway because of the tournaments in Myrtle Beach and Charleston. So without further ado, here we go. Hartford over Emerson, 78-63. Hartford 4-2. Emerson doesn't show their record. Merslavs to fall had 19 for Hartford. Number 17, Villanova over Middle Tennessee, 98-69 in Myrtle Beach. Nova 3-1, Middle Tennessee 3-2. Cole Swider at 26 and Donovan Sims at 18. Miami over Mizzou State, 74-70. Miami 4-1, Mizzou State 2-3. Dejan Vasiljevic had 25 and Gage Prim had 18. Abilene Christian over Champions Christian College, 90-58. Abilene Christian 2-3. Mackay Morris had 15. Florida over St. Joe's, 70-62. Florida 3-2. St. Joe's 2-3. Keontae Johnson had 22 and Ryan Daly had 25. Mississippi State over Tulane, 80-66. Mississippi State 5-0. Tulane 3-1. Iverson Molinar had 21 and KJ Lawson, the ex-Memphis guard, had 12. Loyola Marymount over Air Force, 78-64 in the Janiku Jam from the Bahamas. Air Force drops to 2-3. Marymount goes to 2-2. Avon Apolev had 18 and AJ Walker had 18. Number 24, Baylor over Ohio, 76-53 in Myrtle Beach. Baylor 3-1, Ohio 3-2. Jared Beller had 19 and London McDay had 16. Kent State over Concord, 89-59. Kent State's 4-0. And it really doesn't show the Kent State box score. It's very bizarre here. It doesn't really show me the box score. UNC Asheville over St. Andrews, 105-69. Asheville is now 3-2. Devin Baker had 23. Duquesne over Indiana State, 74-71 from the Bahamas. Duquesne 4-0. Indiana State 0-4. Bailey Steele had 20 and Tyreek Key had 21. Alcorn State over Our Lady of the Lake, 92-56. Alcorn's 2-4, and Deshaw Andrews had 20. Number 18, Xavier over Towson, 73-51. Xavier 5-0, Towson 2-3. Jason Carter had 13. Brian Fobbs had 14. Georgetown upsets number 22 Texas at Madison Square Garden, 82-66. A really good win for Patrick Ewing against Texas. As Georgetown goes to 4-1, Texas drops to 4-1. Matt McClung had 19 and Matt Coleman III had 22. St. Francis Brooklyn over McGar Evers, 122-58. San Fran Brooklyn goes to 2-3. Trey Quattlebaum had 20. Akron over Youngstown State, 82-60. Akron 4-1. Youngstown 2-3. Tyler Cheese had 19 and Darius Quinnisenberry had 17. Colgate over New York Cortland, 89-50. Colgate is 2-3, and Rapolas Ivanskis had 18. Western Carolina over Jacksonville, 96-94 in double overtime. Western Carolina 3-2, Jacksonville 3-4. Mason Faulkner had 28, and Destin Barnes had 20. Hampton over Regent, 93-50. Hampton's 3-1. Benjamin Stanley had 20. Iowa over North Florida, 83-68. Iowa 3-1. North Florida 4-2. Luca Garza had 29, and Ivan Gandia Rosa had 18. South Florida over Wofford, 69-55. South Florida 2-2. Wofford 2-4. David Collins had 18. Nathan Hoover had 11. Coastal Carolina upsets Utah 79-57. Coastal's 3-2. Utah's 3-1. This was a big surprise. Keyshawn Bruton had 22 to lead Coastal, and Timmy Allen had 15 for Utah down there in Myrtle Beach. Pitt over Arkansas Pine Bluff 66-41. Pitt's 4-2. Pine Bluff 0-5. Justin Champagne had 18, and Markadick Bell had 21. Clemson over Alabama A&M 87-51. Clemson 4-1. Bama A&M 0-5. Alamir Dawes had 19 and Brandon Miller had 17. NC Central over Bluefield State 68-44. Jabri Blount had 28 and NC Central goes to 2-4. UC Riverside over Redlands 76-44. Riverside's 3-2. Callum McRae had 14. App State over Charlotte 64-55. App State 4-3. Charlotte 2-2. O'Shawn Williams had 18 and Jordan Shepard had 19. Omaha upsets Washington State 85-77. Omaha 3-3. Washington State 2-2. KJ Robinson had 20 and CJ Ellaby had 27. Tennessee Tech over Winthrop 61-58. Tech 2-5. Winthrop 3-3. Darius Allen had 16 and Russell Jones had 12. Number 12 Texas Tech over Tennessee State 72-57. Texas Tech 4-0. Tennessee State 3-2. David Moretti had 19 and Ravel Moody had 12. UIC over Robert Morris, 72-62. UIC 2-3. Robert Morris 1-5. Goodwin Bowen had 17 and Jalen Hawkins had 14. Marshall over Howard, 91-63. Marshall 2-3. Howard 0-6. Ron Bennett had 17 and Kyle Foster had 14. Oklahoma over Maryland Eastern, 91-64. Oklahoma 5-0. UMass 0-6. Kristen Doolittle had 18 and Cannon Bartley had 13. Drake over Lehigh 74-58. Drake 4-1. Lehigh 3-3. Roman Penn had 18 and James Karnick had 14. Minnesota over Central Michigan 82-57. Minnesota 2-3. Central Michigan 4-1. Marcus Carr had 19 and Kevin McKay had 16. TCU over UC Irvine 59-58. TCU 4-0. UC Irvine 3-3. RJ Nembhard had 20 and Colin Walp had 14. I knew this game would be close. Notre Dame over Toledo 64-62 in overtime. Notre Dame 5-1. Toledo 3-2. Dane Goodwin had 16 and Marion Jackson had 23. Number 1 Duke over Cal 87-52. Duke 5-0. Cal 4-1. Vernon Carey Jr. had 31 and DJ Thorpe had 8. Arizona, number 14 in the country, over South Dakota State, 71-64. Arizona, 5-0. South Dakota State, 4-3. Josh Green had 15, and Douglas Wilson had 15. New Mexico over New Mexico State, 78-77. New Mexico, 5-1. New Mexico State, 2-3. Jaquan Lyle had 24, and Trevlin Queen had 23. Wyoming over Louisiana, 69-61 in overtime. Wyoming, 3-3. ULL, 3-2. Hunter Thompson had 22, and Kobe Julian had 15. Wisconsin over Green Bay 88-70. Wisconsin 4-1, Green Bay 1-3. Nate Ruvers had 19 and Amari Davis had 16. UConn over Buffalo 79-68. UConn 3-1, Buffalo 2-2. Brandon Adams had 20 and Josh Mabala had 15. Lamar over Utah Valley 74-68. Lamar 4-1, Utah Valley 3-3. Avery Sullivan had 17 and Kavit Hafsa had 12. Stanford over William & Mary 81-50. Stanford 6-0. William & Mary 4-2. Maybe Stanford could be a surprise in the Pac-12 this year. Tyrell Terry had 21 and Andy Van Violet had 11. And last but not least, Hofstra upsets UCLA 88-78. Hofstra 3-2, UCLA 4-1. DeJour Bowie had 19 and Jalen Hill had 24. Underway right now, actually there's one final, Liberty over Morgan State 89-48. Liberty 5-0, Morgan State 3-2. Box scores are not available yet, so that must have just ended. So in the second half right now, Nichols and NCAT at the Jamaica Classic. Miami and Florida at the Charleston Classic. Halftime, Middle Tennessee and Tulane and Myrtle Beach. Paradise Jam, Valpo and Grand Canyon, and then Bethune Incarnate Word's underway as well. About to get underway, Cleveland State and UNC Wilmington. 2 o'clock, Rice Milwaukee. Bahamas Showcase. Jamaica Classic, Eastern Michigan and UMBC. 2:30 ESPNU. Missouri State and St. Joe's and Charleston. Should be an interesting game. Mizzou State was their conference favorite before the season, but I like St. Joe's in that one. 2:30 ESPN2, number 17 Villanova and Mississippi State. Villanova is only giving 6.5. I think people are too down on Villanova because of how they lost that game to Ohio State, so I think they covered that perhaps easily. St. Francis, Illinois against Eastern Illinois. 3:15 in Paradise Jam, Fordham in Nevada. 3:30 DC Classic, FIU in Eastern Kentucky. 4 o'clock, Jonico Jam, Indiana State and Loyola Marymount. 4:30 CBS Sports Network, Jamaica Classic, Rhode Island and North Texas. Rhode Island's giving 6. I think they win and cover. 5 o'clock ESPN2 from the Garden, number 22 Texas and Cal. I think Texas bounces back and kills Cal. Cal was terrible yesterday against Duke. Granted, Duke's really good. ESPNU, number 24 Baylor against Coastal Carolina. I think it's a letdown spot for Coastal if Baylor wins and covers. Bobcats Invitational, Presbyterian and Sacred Heart. Bahamas Showcase, UMK St. George Washington. Paradise Jam at 5:45. Illinois State and Cincinnati. That should be an interesting game. I think the spread could be in doubt late, and I think Illinois State actually is going to cover the spread. I think Cincinnati obviously wins, though. 6 o'clock, Stetson and Iona. That's the Metro Atlantic ASUN Challenge. Duquesne and Air Force at 6:30. Jonico Jam. Duquesne's favored by 7. They're undefeated. I think they'll keep it going. 7 o'clock, ESPN2 from Madison Square Garden. Number 1 Duke and Georgetown. So Ewing makes the title game at the Garden against Krzyzewski and Duke. I just think Duke is miles better than Georgetown. I think Duke wins by 20. 7 o'clock, Big Ten Network, George Mason and number 6 Maryland. Maryland, I think the spread can be in doubt late. I think actually George Mason's going to cover, but Maryland will win. SEC Network, Mount St. Mary's against number 9 Kentucky. I think Kentucky wins, but Mount St. Mary's covers. Purdue, Fort Wayne, and number 10 Ohio State. I'm going to say Ohio State covers the 23.5. McNeese and Richmond. Gardner-Webb in South Carolina. Radford, Bradley. Houston Baptist, Michigan. Fox Sports 1, Morehead State, and Butler. Butler's giving 18.5. I think that Morehead can cover, but Butler will probably win. Lipscomb and Navy. Leslie University, Merrimack. Charleston Classic, ESPNU, Towson and Buffalo. Buffalo's giving 5. I think that Buffalo is the better team. I think they'll win, but I'm going to say that Towson sneaks inside the number. Boston University against West Virginia. Columbia International and Furman. CBS Sports Network, number 15, Utah State against LSU at the Jamaica Classic. Utah State's actually favored by 1.5. That says a lot about how they feel about Utah State. I think LSU is the more talented team, and I think LSU actually wins the game outright. So give me LSU as an underdog here in the Jamaica Classic at Montego Bay. So this should be a very good game from Jamaica. Harvard Holy Cross 7:30, Georgia State Prairie View, Missouri S&T and Southeast Missouri State, North Alabama, Louisiana Tech, Wake and Davidson. That should be an interesting game. I'm really interested to see that game. Davidson is obviously the better team. They're actually favored in the game by 8. That's a lot of points, but I'd lay it anyway with Davidson. Myrtle Beach, Ohio, and Utah. Utah's favored by 5.5. I think it's a bounce back spot for Utah after that really bad loss to Coastal Carolina. Bobcats Invitational, Albany, and Quinnipiac. So 2 teams from the ASUN and AEC respectively. Coming from Connecticut, I think Albany's the better team, so I think they'll win and cover. South Carolina State and Vandy at 8 o'clock. Southern Nebraska, Wiley, UTSA, Western Michigan, Oklahoma State, Evansville, East Carolina. Evansville is favored on the road. Obviously, Evansville's getting a lot of attention because they won against Kentucky. East Carolina is just a bad team, so I think Evansville covers there at the Bahamas. Norfolk, Northwestern, Bowling Green, and Western Kentucky. Paradise Jam, Western's giving 4. I think Western's the better team. I think they'll win, and they'll cover down there in the Virgin Islands. MAC A-Sun Challenge, Kennesaw State against Monmouth at 8:30. 9 o'clock, Pac-12 Network, Houston against number 11, Oregon. Oregon's only giving 7. I think that's a steal. I take Oregon in the 7 all day, every day. South Dakota, Arkansas in the Collegiate Hoops Road Show. That's just a campus game for Arkansas, who's undefeated. South Dakota's unbeaten as well. Arkansas should win. I don't know if they'll cover the 15, though. Cal Poly and Creighton. Number 18, Xavier against UConn in the Charleston Classic. Xavier's giving 5. This should be a really good game. I'm interested to see how this one plays out. UConn obviously upset Florida, so there's some thought that UConn is better than expected, but they did lose at home to St. Joe's as well. So to me, this feels like a very Jekyll and Hyde team. It's either going to be Xavier wins by double digits or UConn wins outright, and I'm going to say it's the former. I think Xavier wins by double digits. They're just the better team. Although the head coaching edge probably does go to Dan Hurley over Travis Steele, but roster edge, to me, wins out here with Xavier. 10 o'clock, Fresno Pacific against Long Beach State. Long Island against San Diego State. Idaho State, Santa Clara. Central Arkansas, Cal Baptist. 11 o'clock, Montana against number 25, Washington. Washington's giving 13.5. I think that's a steal. Montana's not very good and just lost to a non-Division I team. And then Temple against USC in a campus game for the Orlando Invitational. Now I'm going to look ahead to Saturday and Sunday. There's some matchups that are to be determined because of all these conference tournaments still going and whatnot. So we're not going to speculate because lesson learned through the years that there's always upsets that screws projected matchups up. So Saturday, for what we know is already scheduled officially, 11 o'clock, St. Francis, Illinois against Incarnate Word. 11:30, Southern Utah, Charleston Southern. 12 o'clock, ESPN News, Virginia against UMass. There's no line for that. If I had to project the line, I'd say Virginia would be like 15.5-point favorites, and I think they'd cover that. Fox Sports 2, Florida A&M against Seton Hall. Seton Hall's number 13 in the country. DePaul and Boston College. So, opportunity for DePaul to get another big road win against a Major 7 team. Bucknell, Syracuse. Ole Miss against number 16, Memphis. That's a big game there. FIU and UNC Wilmington. Bethune-Cookman, Eastern Illinois. Little Rock, NC State. 2 o'clock, Eastern Washington, High Point. St. Francis, Florida State. Delaware State, East Tennessee State. Youngstown State, South Carolina Upstate. Trinity against Central Michigan. Northwest Ohio against Toledo. New Hampshire, James Madison. Charleston, UCF. It's an interesting game. Fox Sports 2, Robert Morris against Marquette. 2:30, ESPN 3, Arizona State against St. John's. So a rematch from the tournament game from last year. So that's interesting, as Arizona State ended up winning that game over the Johnnies. St. Bonaventure, Canisius, Grambling, Oregon State. 3 o'clock, Oral Roberts, Wichita State. Stony Brook against Wagner. Northern Illinois against SIU Edwardsville. Troy Sanford, Eastern Kentucky, Cleveland State at 3:30 in the DC Classic. Howard Ball State, 4 o'clock, UC Davis, Portland. Menlo, UC Santa Barbara. Manhattan, Albany, Sacred Heart, and the Bobcats Invitational. Army, Binghamton, Yale, Penn State. Penn, Providence, NJIT, Brown at 4:30. St. Thomas, Texas against A&M Corpus Christi. 5 o'clock Mercer and UIC. Rider, Columbia. Belmont, St. Louis. 6 o'clock Iona against Kennesaw State. Utah Valley, North Dakota State. Denver and UC Riverside. Presbyterian and Quinnipiac at 6:30. 7 o'clock Florida Gulf Coast against number 21 VCU. Cornell against Coppin State. Citadel Marist. Boise Pacific. Texas Southern, Northern Kentucky, Vermont, Central Connecticut State at 7:30. 8 o'clock Cal State Bakersfield against number 8 Gonzaga. Southeast Louisiana and Austin Peay. Central Christian College in Western Illinois. Jacksonville State against Purdue on the Big Ten Network. Sam Houston State, San Francisco. Hampton, Illinois. Lehigh, St. Mary's. 8:30. Stetson, Monmouth. Portland State, San Jose State at 10 o'clock. Walla Walla in Idaho. Sacramento State, Pepperdine at 10:30. SMU and UNLV. Sunday slate. A couple to be determined, such as the Myrtle Beach Invitational Final. The teams in that one are Middle Tennessee and Tulane. And then the Villanova and Mississippi State. You have Baylor and Coastal Carolina. So the two semifinals are Baylor, Coastal Carolina, and then Villanova against Mississippi State. So I'm going to say that Baylor and Villanova meet in the final, and then Villanova wins it. That's at 10:30 in the morning. Jamaica Classic at Montego Bay, NC-A-T and Eastern Michigan at 12 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. Fairleigh Dickinson, Lafayette at 1 o'clock. St. Francis, Illinois, and Bethune-Cookman. Another Myrtle Beach Invitational game at 1 o'clock. Charleston Classic at 1 o'clock. Albany and Presbyterian in the Bobcats Invitational. The Air Force Reserve Basketball Hall of Fame tip-off. That's to be determined. LIU and number 12 Texas Tech at 2 o'clock. St. Peter's and Caldwell, Arkansas Tech and UT Arlington, North Florida and Creighton at 2 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Western Carolina and Stetson, Merrimack, Hartford, LSU and Rhode Island at Montego Bay. That should be an interesting game. Maine, Maritime Arcade against Maine. VMI and UNC Greensboro at 3 o'clock. William Carey and Southern Miss. Mississippi Valley State and South Dakota State. Charleston Classic. I assume that's going to be the title game. Playing right now is Miami and Florida and Charleston. Those two games won its first rounds. And then St. Joe's, Missouri State is a loser's game today. The other Charleston semifinal is UConn's game against Xavier. So I think we'll see Xavier and Florida in the title game. And I think that Xavier will come out on top and remain unbeaten. So I'm going to say Xavier wins Charleston and Villanova wins Myrtle Beach. Eastern Illinois and Incarnate Word. Air Force tip-off. We don't know who'll be in that game yet. Detroit Mercy, UC Irvine. Ohio Northern and Purdue, Fort Wayne. Sacred Heart and Quinnipiac. Air Force and Indiana State at 4 o'clock. Myrtle Beach game on ESPN at 5 o'clock. I think that might be the title game. Cal State, Northridge, and Colgate. Cal Poly in Iowa, 6 o'clock. Akron and number 2 Louisville. Lamar, number 9 Kentucky. To be determined, 6 o'clock on ESPN News, Charleston Classic. And then the Air Force tip-off at 6 o'clock TBD. 6:30 CBS Sports Network on Sunday, number 15 Utah State against North Texas. Duquesne and Loyola Marymount. 7 o'clock North Dakota, Minnesota. Myrtle Beach Invitational on ESPN News at 7:30 to be determined. Number 23 Colorado against Wyoming on ESPN 3 on Sunday night. Being played from the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. Hofstra and Cal State Fullerton. 8:30 Pac-12 Network, Long Beach State against number 14 Arizona. Charleston Classic title game is 8:30 on ESPN. Air Force has a game at 8:30. The Air Force tip-off. That's to be determined. UMBC Nichols at 9 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. New Orleans against Hawaii at 10 o'clock. 10:30 San Diego against number 25 Washington. And 10:30 on ESPN2 from Vegas, TCU and Clemson. So that's going to be a very interesting game. Very telling game for both those teams that I think are likely NIT bound. But we'll see. Now we'll talk NBA. That was a lot of college basketball talk because I had to go through the weekend slate and those tournaments. Last night in NBA, only 2 games were played. 2 interesting games. Bucks over the Blazers 137-129. Milwaukee 12-3, Portland 5-11, so Portland covered the number. Despite Damian Lillard not playing. Eric Bledsoe led the Bucks in scoring last night with 30. CJ McCollum had 37. Pelicans over the Suns 124-121. My best bet was the Suns minus the 4. That didn't work out. Pelicans win the game outright. They're 6-9. Phoenix 7-7. So Pelicans turning their season around. Brandon Ingram's playing very well. He had 28 points last night, and Kelly Oubre had 25. Looking ahead to tonight, much bigger slate. 7 o'clock Hawks Pistons, Hornets Kings, Wizards. And then 7:30 Kings at the Nets. 8 o'clock Heat Bulls, Lakers Thunder, ESPN Spurs 76ers. 76ers giving 7.5 on the call. The game will be Ryan Ruocco and Hubie Brown. Should be an interesting game, but the Spurs are really a team that's fallen apart. And there's trade rumors now about DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. I actually thought that the year that it looks like they're having this year was going to happen last year. And then because it bit me in the ass last year, I picked this team to make the playoffs again this year. So right now it looks like I'm wrong there. Philly's giving 7.5. Philly almost lost to the Knicks the other night. I think they'll win this game, but I won't be flabbergasted if San Antonio stays within the number. But I'm going to say that Philly does end up covering, but barely. I'm going to say that Philadelphia wins the game 111 to 102, which would mean a 76ers cover. 8:30 Cavs Mavs, 9 o'clock Warriors Jazz, Celtics Nuggets, and 10:30 ESPN Rockets Clippers. Clippers giving 4.5. Mike Breen and Doris Burke on the call. Should be a fun game out in Los Angeles. The Clippers and Celtics put on a great showing on Wednesday night. Granted, it was ugly early, and then it got better as the game went on. It was ugly because there was a lot of defense and not a lot of offense, and it was the other way around in the second half. This game should be a lot of fun. Kawhi and Paul George against James Harden and Russell Westbrook. So 4 mega NBA stars on the same court. Should be a lot of fun. I thought the Celtics would cover on Wednesday night, and I was right about that. And I said the Clippers would win if both their stars played, and both the stars played, and the Clippers won. The Celtics covered, so I was right. This time, it's difficult. The Rockets have been red hot, winners of 8 in a row after a disastrous start. Their defense has been a little better, but I'm not so sure if their defense is going to be very good here in this spot on the road against a very good Clippers team. So, tough call here. I'm going to pick the Clippers to win the game. And I think they'll cover the 4.5. I think free throws at the end will clinch it. So I'm going to say the Clippers win this one 120 to 114, in which should be another fun game between two championship contenders. Rest of the weekend, 5 o'clock Saturday night, Suns Timberwolves, 7 o'clock Bulls Hornets, Magic Pacers, 7:30 Spurs Knicks, NBA TV Heat Sixers, Raptors Hawks, Trailblazers Cavaliers at 8 o'clock, Lakers Grizzlies, 8:30 Pistons Bucks, and 9 o'clock NBA TV Pelicans Jazz. Then Sunday, 3:30 Mavericks Rockets, 6 o'clock Nets Knicks, Kings Wizards, 8 o'clock Suns Nuggets, 9 o'clock Pelicans Clippers. NHL, some interesting games from last night, and then we'll go ahead to tonight and the rest of the weekend slate. Bruins over the Sabres 3-2. Boston is 14-3-5. Buffalo's 10-9-3. Number 1 started game with 36 saves on 38 shots. Tuukka Rask. Number 2 started game with 2 goals. Brad Marchand. Number 3 started game with 2 assists. Danton Heinen. Panthers over the Ducks 5-4 in overtime on a goal by Aaron Ekblad. Florida 12-5-5, Anaheim 10-10-3. Number 1 started the game with 2 goals and assists, Aaron Ekblad. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals, Brett Connolly. Number 3 started the game with the goal and assist for the Ducks, Andres Kass. Islanders over the Penguins 4-3 in overtime on a goal by Brock Nelson. So the second time in a row against the Penguins, coincidentally, that Brock Nelson scores an overtime winner. Islanders 16-3-1. Pittsburgh 11-7-4. Number 1 started the game with 2 goals. Brock Nelson. Number 2 started the game with the goal and assist. Anthony Bill Villier, number 3, started the game with 3 assists. Matthew Barzal. Flyers over the Hurricanes 5-3, a good win for Philly, 11-7-4. Carolina 13-8-1. Number 1 started the game, 2 goals and 2 assists. Claude Giroux. Number 2 started the game with a goal and assist. Mason Frost. Number 3 started the game with a goal and assist. Teuvo Teravainen. Blue Jackets over the Red Wings 5-4. The Jackets are 9-8-4. Detroit 7-14-3. Number 1 started the game with a goal and assist. Olivier Borkstad. Number 2 started the game with a goal. Boone Jenner. Number 3 started the game with a goal and assist. Cam Atkinson. Blues over the Flames 5-0. St. Louis 14-4-5. Calgary 10-12-3. Number 1 started the game with a goal and 3 assists. Zach Sanford. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals. Oscar Sundqvist. Number 3 started the game with 40 saves on 40 shots. Jordan Binghamton. Canucks over to the Predators 6-3. Vancouver 11-8-4. Nashville 9-9-3. Number 1 started the game with 45 saves on 48 shots. Jacob Markstrom. Number 2 started the game with a goal and 2 assists. Elias Pettersson. Number 3 started the game with a goal and an assist. Kalle Jarnkrok. So the Predators have not been playing well of late. Wild over to Avs 3-2. The Wild are 9-11-2. Colorado 13-7-2. Number 1 started the game with 2 assists. Ryan Sutter. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals. Cale Makar. Number 3 started the game with an assist. Joel Eriksson Ek. Lightning over the Blackhawks 4-2. Tampa's 10-7-2. Chicago 9-9-4. Number 1 started the game with an assist. Victor Hedman. Number 2 started the game with a goal and assist. Anthony Cirelli. Number 3 started the game with 32 saves on 34 shots. Curtis McElhaney. Stars over the Jets 5-3. Dallas 13-8-2. Winnipeg 13-9-1. Number 1 started the game with the goal. Jamie Benn. Number 2 started the game with 3 assists. Corey Perry. Number 3 started the game with the goal. Radek Faksa. Maple Leafs over the Coyotes 3-1. Maple Leafs 10-10-4. First win with the new coach. And Arizona 13-8-2. Number 1 started the game with 30 saves on 31 shots. Frederik Andersen. Number 2 started the game with a goal. Austin Matthews. Number 3 started the game with the goal. Pierre Engvall. That was his first goal. Sharks over the Golden Knights 2-1 in overtime on a goal by Logan Couture. San Jose 11-11-1. Vegas 11-9-4. Number 1 started the game with a goal. Logan Couture. Number 2 started the game with a goal. Brian McNabb. Number 3 started the game. Didn't have a point but played very well. Ryan Reeves. Kings over the Oilers 5-1. LA is 9-12-1. Edmonton 14-7-3. Number 1 started the game with 3 assists. Drew Doughty. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals and assists. Tyler Toffoli. Number 3 started the game with 25 saves on 26 shots. Jonathan Quick. Only 2 games tonight. You have at 7 o'clock the Devils at the Penguins and 7:30 the Rangers at the Senators. Tomorrow, 12:30 in the afternoon, Canucks Capitals, 1 o'clock Flames Flyers, 4 o'clock Coyotes Kings, 7 o'clock Rangers Canadians, Wild Bruins, Ducks Lightning, Red Wings Devils, Panthers Hurricanes, Blue Jackets Jets, Maple Leafs Avalanche, 8 o'clock Predators Blues, Blackhawks Stars, 10 o'clock Oilers Golden Knights, and the Islanders at the Sharks at 10:30. Sunday, only 3 games, 5 o'clock Sabres Panthers, 7 o'clock Hurricanes Red Wings, and 8 o'clock the Oilers at the Coyotes. Now we're going to do the picks for college football for week number 13. All these picks are brought to you by DraftKings. We'll start with tonight. Colorado State at Wyoming. Wyoming's giving 6.5. The over-under is 51.5. This is a weird line at 6.5. Colorado State's been playing much better than people expected. Wyoming is a team that really cannot score the ball, but they play good defense. So I wanted to take Wyoming, but the line went up. So instead, I'm going to take the under 51.5. I'm going to say that Wyoming wins the game. I'm not so sure. I'm afraid of a backdoor, but I feel much better about under 51.5 than I do with giving 6.5 for Wyoming. And then on Saturday, you have Penn State against Ohio State. Penn State is getting 19 on the road. The over-under is 57.5. I love Penn State getting the 19. I do not think they'll win the game on the field, but I do believe that they will keep it close against Ohio State like they have over the last 4 years. They nearly won in Columbus a few years ago. Granted, J.T. Barrett was their quarterback and not Justin Fields, who's miles better than J.T. Barrett. But I do like Penn State getting all those points. Michigan State against Rutgers. Michigan State's laying 20.5. The over-under is 43.5. This is tough. I'm going to say over 43.5. This is going to be an interesting game. Rutgers is allergic to defense. Sparty hasn't really played much defense either. I'm going to say Sparty finally gets off the shine and gets the win. I'm going to say that Sparty wins this game like 35-10, and even that would qualify as an over. Minnesota against Northwestern. Minnesota is laying 13.5. The over-under is 39.5. The line is so low because Tanner Morgan might not play for Minnesota, but who cares? Tanner Morgan's a nice quarterback. And the steam's on Minnesota, which probably means that Morgan probably is playing. I'm going to light a 13.5. I'm going to assume Morgan plays. Northwestern just flat out stinks. This is one of my best 5 plays of college football of the weekend. So give me Minnesota minus 13.5 to bounce back from that bad loss against Iowa. Kansas against Iowa State. Iowa State's laying 25. The over-under is 58. I'm going to take the under. I don't feel good about it because Kansas' offense is one of the more Jekyll and Hyde units this year. Iowa State's a good defensive team, a much better defensive team than Oklahoma State. So give me the under. I'm going to say Iowa State wins this game like 35-20 or something like that. 35 plus 20 is 55, so that qualifies as an under. Western Carolina against Alabama. Bama's laying 57. The over-under 61. This is easy. I'm taking the under 61. No Tua Tagovailoa, obviously. Matt Jones is starting at quarterback. I think Alabama's going to be very, very conservative in this spot. I can see them winning this game like 50-7, and that would still qualify as an under. UCF against Tulane. UCF's laying 6. The over-under 69.5. I'm taking Tulane plus the points. I think Tulane wins the game outright. They're plus 180 on the money line. I think UCF is the most overvalued team in the AAC this season. They're treating them like of a few years ago. And obviously they had that blowout win at Temple. But that was just one blowout win at Temple in a game where they ended up getting up for. But I love Tulane getting the 6. They're going to win the game outright. I'm going to say Tulane wins like 40-38 or something like that. Oklahoma State against West Virginia. Oklahoma State's laying 5. The over-under 55. I am taking the Mountaineers plus the 5. This number was at 7. It went down to 5. I think West Virginia wins outright. They're plus 165 on the money line. They finally made a quarterback change. And I think Neil Brown's team will get up at home against Cowboys team that I think is looking ahead to Bedlam next week. So give me West Virginia plus the 5. They're winning the game outright. I'm going to say the Mountaineers win this one like 36-30, and you'll be hearing John Denver at the end of the game down there in Morgantown. So go John Denver, go Mountaineers. I'm taking the 5. That's one of my best 5 plays of college football this weekend. Auburn's laying 48.5 against Stanford. The over-under is 64. This is another instance where I prefer to take the total rather than the side. And the total that I like for this game is the under at 64. I think Auburn can win this game like 55-0, and that still qualify as an under. BYU against UMass. BYU's laying 39.5 on the road. The over-under 68.5. I'm taking the over. UMass and overs tend to go well, with the exception of that Northwestern game, because Northwestern actually does play a little bit of defense against teams like UMass. But BYU is not a very good team either. So I think they'll be able to score a lot of points. I think UMass at home will score some points. I'm going to say BYU wins like 47-30 or something like that. And that qualifies an over. East Carolina, UConn. East Carolina's laying 14.5. The over-under is 65. I think this is a tough one too. I'm going to hold my nose and take another over. I want to lay it with East Carolina, but it's over 2 touchdowns, so I'm not going to touch it. So I'm going to take the over and assume this is a shootout, and I would say East Carolina wins like 47-23 or something like that. Ball State, Kent State. Ball State's laying 3.5. The over under 60. I'm taking Kent State plus the 3.5. I think they win the game outright. They're plus 133 on the money line. Kent State at home is very good. I understand the Ball State argument and then the letdown factor for Kent State after the comeback last week. But I'm taking Kent State with the points, and I think they win outright. Next up at 1 o'clock is Illinois against Iowa. Iowa's laying 15.5. The over under is 47.5. Give me Illinois plus the 15.5. We're getting over 2 touchdowns on the road. I don't think Illinois will win, but I just think that they'll cover the point spread. I'm going to say that Iowa takes it like 33-23, now qualify as a Fighting Illini cover. Liberty against Virginia. Virginia's laying 17. The over-under is 55.5. I'm going to take the over 55.5 here. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Liberty's a team that doesn't really play that much defense. I'm going to say that Virginia wins like 37-20. So I'm calling a push. Mercer against North Carolina. North Carolina's laying 39. The over under 64.5. I'm taking the over. I think that both these teams are going to score. I won't be flabbergasted if North Carolina does it by themselves. I'm going to say North Carolina wins 55-17. 2 o'clock Air Force against New Mexico. Air Force is laying 22. The over under is 55. Another tough one for me to gauge. It's tough to lay over 3 touchdowns on the road again for anybody, really. But I'm going to do it with Air Force. They're a really good team, and they really certainly have really broken out this year. So give me Air Force minus 22. South Alabama against Georgia State. Georgia State's laying 10. The over-under is 56. I'm going to take Georgia State minus the points. They're the better team. South Alabama is not very good. The over 56 is enticing as well, but I'm going to take the minus 10. 2:30, Boston College against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's laying 20.5. The over under 64. I'm taking the over here. Both of these teams are going to score and score and score. I think Notre Dame could put up 50 potentially. I'm going to say that Notre Dame wins 47-23, and I think that qualifies an over. Texas State and App State. App State's laying 30.5. The over under 51. I'm taking the over here. I think App State's favored by too much because Texas State's a team that's kind of shown a little bit. So give me the over 51. I think both these teams are going to score. I think App State wins like 38-20 or something like that. Georgia Southern against Arkansas State. Arkansas State's laying 1.5. The over under is 56. This line's been going back and forth. Arkansas State opened as a favorite, and Georgia Southern was favored. Now Arkansas State's favored again. Tough one, but I'm going to lay the 1.5, but I don't feel good about it. Although I like the over too. But the main play here is Arkansas State minus the 1.5. 3:30, Texas A&M against Georgia. Georgia's laying 12.5. The over under is 44. I love Georgia minus the 12.5. Georgia is a team that really has to show the committee a little something to really prove themselves of the number 4 ranking that they've been given. And they have a good opportunity here to grab one of those playoff spots if they win out. And I'm going to lay the 12.5. It's one of my best 5 plays of the college football weekend. So give me Georgia minus the 12.5, and I think they win this game by more than 20. Texas against Baylor. Baylor's minus 5. The over-under is 58.5. Tough one here. I'm going to take Texas getting the 5. I don't think that they will win necessarily, but I just think they'll cover. This kind of reminds me of when they played Iowa State a few weeks ago when they were getting a lot of points and lost, but ended up covering the point spread. I think this is a similar situation here. I'm going to say that Baylor wins by 3, so give me Texas at plus 5, so at least I'm getting more than a field goal with the Longhorns. Michigan and Indiana. Michigan's laying 9.5. The over-under is 53.5. I am taking the Hoosiers plus the 9.5. I think they're live here, but I'm not so sure if they'll actually pull this off. I think that they will keep it close, but typical Indiana will find a way to lose. I would say Michigan wins this game like 34-30 or something like that. So give me Michigan the win, but Indiana to cover the 9.5. UCLA against USC. USC's laying 13, the over-under 66. Tough one, but I'm going to take the Trojans at under 2 touchdowns. I think they're way better than UCLA. UCLA beat USC last year, but USC this year is better than USC from last year, although UCLA is better this year than they were last year too. But I just like how the Trojans have been playing. They've been a good home team with the exception of that game against Oregon. Clay Helton's trying to save his job, so give me USC minus the 13. I think they win by more than 2 touchdowns. SMU and Navy. Navy's giving 3.5. The over under 66.5. Tough, but I'm taking the over 66.5. It dropped from 68. I still like it at 66.5. I think this game's played in the 80s. Very high scoring game, but I'm going to say Navy wins, but I like the over 66.5. Nebraska against Maryland. Nebraska's laying 5. The over under 61.5. Everyone and their brother loves Nebraska. I don't get it. They've been a massive underachiever all season long, as has Maryland. But I just think that Nebraska's overrated. So give me Maryland plus the 5. I think they win the game outright. They're plus 170 on the money line. Although over 61.5 is enticing as well. But give me Maryland plus 5. I think they win outright at plus 170. Marshall and Charlotte. Marshall's giving 7. The over-under is 55.5. I like Charlotte getting the 7, and I think they win the game outright. They're plus 210 on the money line. So give me Charlotte plus 7. I think they're very live in this spot. North Texas against Rice. North Texas is laying 6.5. The over-under is 55.5. I'm taking North Texas minus the points. Rice, I think, has a little bit of a letdown here after last week. So give me North Texas minus the 6.5 at under a touchdown. Pitt against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's laying 40. Over-under is 45.5. I love the over 45.5. I can't believe the total's this low. Like, Virginia Tech, I know they play good defense and whatnot, and so does Pitt. But I love the over. I think this game could be played into the 50s. Come on. So give me over 45.5. Virginia Tech wins. Western Kentucky against Southern Miss. Southern Miss is laying 40. Over-under 51.5. I think Southern Miss wins, but I like the over 51.5. I think these two teams are going to play into a shootout. Two good offenses. Should be an entertaining game in Conference USA. Another big Conference USA game. UAB hosting Louisiana Tech. UAB's minus 6.5. The over-under is 45. Give me Louisiana Tech getting the 6.5. I don't think they win the game outright. I think UAB will win, but I just think this game is closer than 6.5. And I think that La Tech can backdoor at the end. Tennessee Martin against Kentucky. Kentucky is minus 29.5. The over-under is 43.5. Kentucky's not really an over team, but I like them to get the over here. I think they could do it by themselves. Tennessee Martin just stinks, so give me the over 43.5 there. 4 o'clock, Purdue against Wisconsin. Wisconsin's laying 24.5. The over-under is 48. Give me the under 48. Wisconsin's going to run the ball, and kill the clock. So I'm going to say that Wisconsin wins the game like 30-13. Now qualifies an under. Memphis against South Florida. South Florida is getting 14.5. The over-under is 59.5. Give me South Florida plus 14.5. I think they win the game outright. The plus 450 on the money line. So give me South Florida getting to 14.5. UTEP against New Mexico State. New Mexico State's laying 7.5. The over-under is 55.5. Give me the over here. I think this is a shootout. Two really bad teams from just the season in general. One's independent, the other's from Conference USA. So give me the over in that game. Cal at Stanford. Stanford's laying 2. The over-under is 40. Give me the under. I don't think any of these teams are going to score. I'm going to say Stanford wins. But I'm going to say they win like a low-scoring, like a 20-14 type of ball game. Syracuse, Louisville. Louisville's laying 8.5. The over-under is 62.5. Tough one, but give me Louisville minus the points. I think this is a letdown for Syracuse after the big win against Duke. So give me Louisville minus the 8.5. San Jose State and UNLV. San Jose State's laying 7. The over-under is 65.5. Give me UNLV plus the 7. I think they win the game outright. They're plus 205 on the money line. Old Dominion and Middle Tennessee. Middle's laying 14.5. The over-under is 47. Give me Middle minus 14.5. It's always smart to bet against UTEP and Old Dominion and teams like that from Conference USA. Troy and Louisiana. Louisiana's laying 14, the over-under 71. This is tough. I think the number's big, and I think the total's big. So, probably the toughest call. I like Louisiana better at 13.5, but it's 14 now. So I'm going to change it to the total. I'm going to take the over 71. I don't feel super about it, but I could see a world where ULL wins like 40-34, and now qualifies an over. 5 o'clock, Coastal Carolina and UL Monroe. UL Monroe's laying 5.5, the over under 65. Give me the over. This is a shootout between these two teams from the Sun Belt. 6 o'clock, Florida Atlantic and UTSA. FAU's laying 21, the over under 57. I got FAU at 18.5 now. It's steamed up to 21. I'll still take it there. I don't think UTSA is very good at all. So give me FAU minus the points. 7 o'clock, Arkansas and LSU. LSU's laying 43.5, the over under 69.5. Give me the under. I think that LSU can win this game like 50-10, and that still, for me, qualifies as an under. Kansas State, Texas Tech. Texas Tech's laying 2.5, the over under 55.5. Give me Tech minus the 2.5. This line's really telling you something, isn't it? So give me Texas Tech minus the 2.5. I think it's a fun game. Temple, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's laying 10.5, the over under 46. Give me the over. I think that both these teams are going to score. I think this game's played into the 50s, and Cincinnati will get the win. Miami against FIU. Miami's laying 20.5. The over under is 49. I'm going to lay the 20.5 in Miami. It's still under 3 touchdowns. I just don't think FIU is very good. Miami's just that much better with Jaron Williams at quarterback. So give me Miami minus the 20.5. 7:30 Tennessee, Mizzou. Mizzou's laying 3.5. The over under is 45.5. Another tough one here. I'm going to take the over. I think this is a shootout. Kelly Bryant against a resurgent Tennessee. I think this game's played into the 50s, but I'm going to say Mizzou wins. Houston, Tulsa. Tulsa's giving 2.5. The over under is 58.5. Give me the over 58.5. It's one of my best 5 plays of the college football weekend. I think this is a shootout. I'm going to say Tulsa wins. This game's played perhaps into the 80s. I am very surprised that the total's this low. It's actually dropped from 60. Oregon against Arizona State. Oregon is laying 14. The total is in the process of a change. It was at 52.5, and it's up to 53. I am taking Arizona State plus the 14. I think they're live here. Plus 460 on the money line. I think they win outright. I just think that Oregon's looking ahead a little bit to the Pac-12 title game, and they just are forgetting about Herm Edwards, who always says, you play to win the game. Herm Edwards is probably telling his team that as I record this podcast. So give me Arizona State plus the 14, plus 460 on the money line. It's the last of my best 5 plays of the weekend. Duke against Wake Forest. Wake Forest is laying 7, the over-under is 50. Give me Wake minus the 7. I think this is a bounce-back spot for Wake after the bad loss against Clemson. Abilene Christian against Mississippi State. State's laying 37. The over-under is 57. Tough one for me here, but I'm going to take Abilene Christian getting the 37. I just think that Mississippi State wins by 30 rather than 37. TCU, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's laying 18. The over-under is 65. I'm going to take the over here. I wanted to take Oklahoma, but I think backdoor's open. So give me the over 65 here. I think the Sooners obviously win. Jalen Hurts has a big game. I'm going to say Oklahoma wins like 45-30 or something like that. Oregon State, Washington State. Wazoo's laying 11. The over under 76.5. I'm going to take the Beavers getting 11. I don't think they're going to win the game outright, but I just think this is a close game. So give me Oregon State plus the 11. I think they've been playing very well on the road this year, and that's a 9 o'clock game. 10 o'clock, Washington against Colorado. Washington's laying 14. The over-under is 52.5. I'm going to take the over here. Colorado doesn't play a lick of defense. This is a good spot for Jacob Eason and the offense to get going here. I think that this game is going to be played into the 60s, potentially. So I think that Washington can win like 37-28 or something like that. That qualifies an over. Utah against Arizona. Utah's laying 22.5. The over-under is 57. I like Utah unders. I'll take it here. I think they'll slow down Khalil Tate in that offense. I think that Utah obviously wins the game. 10:30, Boise State against Utah State. Boise's laying 90, over-under is 53. I'm taking San Diego State Utah State plus the 9. It went up from 7.5 for whatever reason. I think they can win the game, but I'm not sure if they will. I'm going to say that Boise wins, but Utah State covers. Nevada, Fresno State. Fresno's laying 14. The over-under is 51. I'm going to take Fresno minus 14. I don't feel good about it whatsoever. 11 o'clock, San Diego State against Hawaii. Hawaii's laying 2.5. The over-under is 47.5. The total's gone down from 51.5. That's tough, but I'll ride with it. I think Hawaii wins, but it's low scoring. So give me under 47.5. Now I'm going to do my NFL picks for week number 12. So many interesting places. I obviously lost last night with my underplay, but I was right about the Texans winning, but the Colts covering. The Dolphins are at the Browns. The Dolphins are getting 10.5. The over-under is 45.5. Miami is coming off the loss against Buffalo. The Browns are coming off a win over the Steelers and the Myles Garrett debacle. I love the Dolphins getting the points. Love it. I won't be flabbergasted if they win this game outright. I'm not calling for a Dolphins win, but I do think they can win. I'm going to say the Browns win a closer than expected game. Let's roll with 30-24 Cleveland as the final score. So I'm going to take Miami getting the 10.5 as my play here. Denver at Buffalo. Buffalo's laying 40 over under 37.5. Denver coming off the bye 2 weeks. Or no, not the bye. They lost at Minnesota. I thought they had a bye last week for whatever reason. Whatever. Denver lost to Minnesota. They blew the big lead. Buffalo coming off the win over Miami. This is tough, but I'm going to take the under 37.5. Low scoring game. I'm going to say that the Bills win 20-16. I think that this screams push, but the under barely hits, so give me 20-16 Bills. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Pittsburgh's laying 6.5. The over-under is 38. Pittsburgh is coming off that emotional Browns game with the fight. They lost that game. Mason Rudolph sucked. Cincinnati's coming off a competitive game against the Raiders in which they lost. This is another under I absolutely love. I'm going to say that Pittsburgh wins an ugly, ugly game, 16-13. So give me the under 38, and I think it's I'm going to make this one of my best 5 for the NFL in terms of plays. Raiders-Jets. Raiders are giving 3. The over-under is 46.5. Raiders coming off the narrow win over the Bengals. Jets are playing a lot better. They're coming off the win over the Redskins in D.C. This is really, really tough in terms of a straight-up pick. I'm going to take the Jets to win this game straight up, but and it's because of the East Coast, West Coast travel. They're playing a lot better. I think the Raiders are looking ahead. This is a good opportunity for the Jets to win their 3rd straight and get the heat off of Adam Gase a little bit, and for Sam Darnold to really show that he's made some progress. I'm going to say that New York wins a fun game. I'm going to say 27-23 Jets. So one of my best 5 plays for the NFL this weekend is the over in the Raiders-Jets game. So my best play here, over 46.5. I'm going to say that the Jets win 27-23, which adds up to 50. Seahawks, Eagles. Eagles are laying 1. The over-under is 48. The Seahawks are coming off that Monday night game against the Niners. Before that, they had a bye. So they have a week off from that. Eagles coming off that Patriots loss. This is a good bounce-back opportunity for the Eagles here, I think. I'm going to take the over, though, as my best play. It's minus 108, so the juice is on the under. But I think that both these teams are going to score. I think Carson Wentz will put up a good game, good bounce-back spot for him. And I think that Russell Wilson will continue to put up MVP video game types of stats. I'm going to say the Eagles win a very entertaining game, 33-27. But my play here is over 47. Or 48. I'm looking at the wrong over total. I was looking at the Panthers-Saints total. Panthers are getting 10 in New Orleans. The over-under is 47. Panthers obviously coming off that dreadful loss against the Falcons at home. Saints coming off the bounce-back road win at Tampa Bay. I am going to take the over 47 here. I think this is another shootout type of game. I think the Carolina offense will play better than it did a week ago. I'm going to say that the Saints win this game 33-20. So give me the over 47 here in terms of my play for this game. Giants-Bears. The Giants are getting 6. The over-under is 40. Giants coming off their bye 2 weeks ago. They lost against the Jets. Bears coming off their loss against the Rams. Evan Ingram and Red Ellison are out. Those are 2 losses for the Giants offense. Saquon Barkley's there. Sterling Shepard might be back. Darius Slayton's been a nice find for them. All week I was planning on taking the Giants as my outright upset big underdog to win. I'm not so sure about that now with the injuries, but I'm going to take the Giants plus the 6. But I'm going to say that Chicago wins 23-20 on a late field goal by Eddie Pinheiro, as they actually do get a game-winning kick. And that qualifies an over as well. So I'm going to say that the Giants cover the 6, but the Bears win on the field. Detroit against the Redskins. Detroit's laying 3.5. The over-under is 41. Detroit is coming off the loss against the Cowboys at home. Redskins coming off the bad loss against the Jets. This is very, very tough. I am going to take the under 41, but I'm going to take Dwayne Haskins and the Washington Redskins to get the win. 17-13 at home. 17 plus 13 equals 30. That's an under, but I think Washington will get the win. Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Atlanta's laying 3.5. The over-under is 51.5. Tampa Bay is coming off the loss at home against the Saints. Falcons coming off the win over Carolina on the road. I'm going to take the over 51.5 as my best play for this game, and it's among one of my best 5 picks of the NFL side of the weekend. But I'm going to say that Tampa Bay wins a entertaining game. I'm going to say they win 31-27. Jameis Winston plays well, and Tampa Bay's been very good on the road this year. So give me the Bucs to win, but by the way, plus 170 on the money line, but my play for this game is over 51.5, and it's included in one of my best 5 plays of the weekend for the NFL. To the 4 o'clock slate, you have Jacksonville and Tennessee. Tennessee's laying 3.5. The over-under is 41.5. I love the over here. I think that both these teams are going to score. I think Nick Foles will have a good game. I think the Tennessee defense is not very good. Jacksonville's defense is overrated itself. Revenge spot for the Titans after the Jaguars beat them with Gardner Minshew back in week 3. So I'm going to say that the Titans win the game, but I like the over the total. I'm going to say Tennessee wins 26-23, which adds up to 49. So that's an easy over there. The game of the weekend in sports. Cowboys, Patriots. Patriots laying 6.5. The over-under 45. Dallas coming off the win against Detroit. New England coming off a win at Philly in which they really didn't look all that great on offense. Granted, their defense is so good. I'm going to take Dallas getting the 6 in the hook, but I think New England wins what I think will be a classic game, 27-24. The over's enticing as well, but I love Dallas getting the 6 in the hook, and I think that Jason Garrett will do something stupid to fuck it up and cost the Cowboys the game. So give me Dallas getting the 6.5. I do think they're live here. And I thought about picking them as a underdog to win outright as well. So Give me New England to win, but Dallas to cover 6.5. And Dallas plus 6.5 is among one of my best 5 of the weekend for the NFL. Green Bay, San Francisco. San Francisco is laying 3. The over-under is 47.5. Green Bay coming off their bye, and then 2 weeks ago they won that snow game against the Panthers. The 49ers are coming off a crazy win over the Cardinals in a game they probably should have lost. I'm a little concerned with the 49ers. I'm taking Green Bay getting the 3, and I think Green Bay wins outright. Everybody and their brother loves the 49ers. Costos loves the 49ers. I disagree with him. I think Green Bay's the better team. I thought that San Francisco would be giving less than 3, but maybe San Francisco wins by 3 and this is a push, but I love the Packers getting the 3, and they're plus 148 on the money line. So give me Green Bay to win what should be a fun game down at Levi Stadium, 27-23, and I think the over's a fun play as well. And Monday night, Baltimore at the Rams. Baltimore laying 3.5. The over-under is 46.5. Baltimore coming off that big-time win against the Texans. The Rams coming off an important win for them over the Bears. I wanted to take Baltimore minus 3 as my last of my best 5 plays, but instead I'm going to take the over 46.5. I feel much better about this than I do with the Ravens giving the 3 in the hook. This is going to be a fun game. I think that both these teams are going to score. I disagree again with Costos. Costos thinks this is an under, but I like this for the over because I think that Lamar and company are going to score on that defense. I get it, Aaron Donald, yada, yada, but that defense has been vulnerable at times this year, and it looked good last week because they're playing against Mitch Trubisky. Lamar Jackson's obviously way better than Mitch Trubisky. So give me the over 46.5 for my final of my best plays of the weekend. And I think Baltimore wins a fun game, 37-30 on Monday Night Football, led by Lamar Jackson and company. And I think the Rams offense will be good in this game, but ultimately not good enough. So give me Baltimore 37-30 on Monday Night Football. Best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings. We're going to go to college basketball because that's where all the fun is, taking those big money lines. But yesterday, UCLA screwed me over. I'm going to take, I don't feel good about it, but I'm going to take Texas and I'm going to take Baylor over Cal and Coastal Carolina, respectively. Cincinnati over Illinois State. Iona over Stetson. Maryland over George Mason. West Virginia over Boston College. Duke over Georgetown. It was Boston University, not Boston College. South Carolina against Gardner-Webb, but I don't feel good about that one either. Richmond, Butler against McNeese State and Morehead State, respectively. And then I'm going to go with Harvard on the road at Holy Cross, and I'm going to go with Louisiana Tech against North Alabama. So that adds up to plus 130, wagering $5, payout of $11.47. That's it for the best bet of the day. I'll be back on Monday recapping everything from the weekend from the NFL, college football, NBA, NHL. If any baseball free agent signings happen, we'll certainly go over them as well. And I hope you guys have a fabulous weekend, everybody.